Hi guys, welcome to checkpoint 2 on your grid project. So last time we left, we were drawing our grid on our picture and our paper that was cut specifically for our project for checkpoint 1. Okay, so I have checkpoint 1, I'm ready to go. Now, one of the things that I want to do is I want to look at my paper going across here, and I want to kind of number the top and side. Okay, so I'm going to just number this 1, 2, 3, 4, and then remember I have that kind of weird section right here. This is going to be number 5. Okay, and it's kind of skinny. So, and then this one up here is also going to be 1. Okay, because it's still the first square. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so it goes all the way down to 7 there. Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing on my paper. Okay, so I want to make sure that I have my paper oriented the same way as my picture. Okay, and so see how I have this kind of small section over here? I want to make sure that my small section is also on the right side. Okay, that way I can make sure I'm drawing everything in proportion. Because if this side was the small side accidentally, whenever I was drawing out my handle, would look very distorted. It wouldn't look quite right. Okay, so I'm going to turn my paper so you can see I have my smaller section right here on the right side, just like I do on my picture. And I'm going to very lightly label these squares. 4 and 5. It's so light you can hardly see it on my camera here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And this is going to help us while we are working on our drawing here. Okay, so what I want to do is I kind of want to go in order. I don't want to just pick random squares on here to figure out. I want to kind of start methodically. So I want to either go on the top or the side here. And I think for mine, it makes sense for me to kind of go towards the side. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a scrap piece of paper and I'm going to cover up part of my picture. So I'm only looking at one row here at a time. That's going to make it a lot easier for us while we are working on this. Okay, and so I'm going to look, and my handle for my cup starts in row number 3 or square number 3. So it's going to be in square number 3 right here. Okay, I'm also going to look at how far it is from the top of that square and how far this is from the bottom of that square, and I'm going to recreate that over here. Okay, so I'm going to say that the top of my handle hits right about here, and it looks like the bottom section hits right about maybe here or so. Okay, and again, these are super light dashes so that if I hate them, then I can erase them. Okay, and then I'm going to look where they hit at the bottom of this square right here. Okay, so it looks like the top one hits right about here. So this one's going to go this way, and this one goes through right about here. Okay, and then so I'm going to kind of follow the shape that I see here. And this is almost like a rounded, kind of reminds me of like a rounded 90-degree angle. I'm going to follow this here. And then this one, see how it kind of has a lower slope? So I'm going to kind of follow that this way. Okay, now I can come through here and I can make any adjustments if I'm like, oh, that's not quite right. I feel weird about this. Okay, and I kind of feel like maybe I need to bring this up just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to do that right here. Okay, and then I have my handy dandy eraser for big mistakes, right? Okay, so I have this here. I think I'm going to round this out just a little bit more right here. Just like that. Okay, so I'm feeling pretty good about this. Maybe. I don't know. I feel like it still needs to kind of curve out here just a little bit more. Maybe that'll be right. Okay, now I'm going to move down to the next square. Okay, so while I'm moving down here, I'm going to continue my lines up here, so I don't really need to focus on that too much. I'm going to figure out where they end here. So my bottom line is going to end, looks like right about here on this very bottom part, and right about here. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of connect these in. Okay, and one of the things I want to keep in mind too is how thick and thin this is looking, right? I feel like maybe it needs to be a little bit thinner through here. I'm going to go ahead and draw this out and then I'll make some adjustments. Actually, that does look thinner. Okay, so it's a little thicker up here, a little thinner down here. I might actually bring this in just a tiny bit more this way. Nope, not quite. Bring this in a tiny bit more. Okay, and then I'll erase those lines that I don't want. Remember, it's always a good idea to keep the lines there until you've drawn your new ones, because what will happen is if you erase them, you end up drawing the same line over and over again. So it's good to use your old line that you don't like as a reference point. Okay, so I have this right here. And then my next square has a teeny tiny bit in it. So I'm just going to bring that down here, just like so. Okay, and I'm going to move my camera down here a little bit, so you can see. Okay, now the next thing that I want to keep in mind is I have this shadow going on here. Okay, if you have a shadow in your drawing, it's a good idea to go ahead and draw where that shadow's at, because it's going to make it a lot easier for you when it comes to shading. Okay, so I'm still in square number 5 over here. And I'm going to kind of just slightly sketch out. Looks like it's less than half on my square. So this would be the halfway point roughly. So it's a little less than half. So here's my halfway point. It's going to come down here. And it ends about halfway here. Okay. Again, I'm drawing super lightly. And then, let's get this over just a little bit so you can see. Then it goes through line 6 and kind of ends right about here. So my shadow goes this direction. Okay, so I have that drawn. I don't really have a whole lot going on in 7 here other than the shadow. Okay, so I'm going to move on to my next row here. Now, at any point, if it makes more sense for you to move to the top row or to the bottom, you can do that. I think I'm going to continue going up and down like this for now until it makes more sense for me to move. Okay, so I'm going to finish drawing. Actually, let's go ahead and go up to square number 2 right here. Okay, so that's now this square. And I'm going to draw this, let's see. So the top of my cup hits right almost at the corner, just barely below the corner, right up here. Okay, and it comes around here, so it should be hitting pretty close. Kind of light, I'm just going to lightly pencil this in here while I'm figuring this out. It's going to hit right around here, it looks like. Okay, and then it's going to go kind of a straight down line there, because the side of my cup here is straight. Okay, I'm feeling pretty good about that, so I'm going to go ahead and line this just a tiny bit darker. I'm going to bring this down a little bit here, and this looks like it kind of curves around to meet that. Just like this. All right, now, and actually I kind of feel like this is a little too low. I'm going to bring this up just a little bit, which means I'm going to bring this line up here. Okay, the reason why I decided that is because if I look at the negative space, that's the space that's around the object, not the actual object. So if I look at this tiny little space right here, if I were to kind of block this off here, this little tiny section right here looks more like a rectangle to me than a square. And on my paper, it looked more like a square than a rectangle. So I wanted to kind of mimic that there, okay? Which begs the question, do I need to bring this up a little bit? Let's try it. All right, I feel pretty good about that. Okay, so I'm going to continue on with the rest of my drawing. Okay, so I've got this section right here. I'm going to go ahead and add in part of the rim of my cup. Okay, so the cup looks like it kind of comes around here and maybe is going to hit maybe right about here, maybe. I'll try it out. So it's kind of angling down here like this. Okay, because I have two lines essentially. I have this outer line going down and then I have this line coming around here. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and extend down here. I think I'm going to come back and hit that marshmallow here in just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to extend this down. And if I'm looking here, if I go straight down from this line, the cup actually inserts a little bit past that. Okay, so I want to imagine this line kind of coming down here. And I'm going to imagine that my cup actually comes all the way here. So I'm going to have this slight bit of line difference. And on mine, it's kind of hard to see. But if you look up close, there's almost like a white highlight right there. Okay, and I'm going to make sure I pay attention to that whenever I get to my shading part. Okay, so I'm going to bring this we are back actually here. I'm just going to use my paper. Okay, so we're back to this section right here, and I want to see where this hits down here. Notice now it's no longer straight, it's kind of angling downward. Okay, and it looks like maybe it's going to hit right about here or so. So I'm just going to kind of angle my, ooh, that looks a little too steep, don't you think? A little too rounded. Okay, so I'm not going to erase this line. I'm just going to make a slight adjustment here. Okay, and I'm actually going to wait and see if I still like the new line or not. Okay, I'm going to bring this further. Notice how it continues to kind of come down that same angle. So I'm going to kind of imagine it following almost the same angle here. Okay, and it hits about, I would say a little less than halfway. So here's the halfway point. So that's about right. Okay, so it comes down here, and then I'm going to extend my line drawing out this way. Okay, so I'm kind of piecing it together this whole time. Sometimes when people are drawing, they tend to just look at the picture and they totally forget the purpose of the grid, right? The grid is supposed to help you make sure everything is in the right place. It makes it proportional, right? So it's almost like you're taking the original picture and just blowing it up to a bigger size. It's essentially what we're doing here. Okay, I still don't know about this handle, but I'm going to come back and work on it just a little bit once I get the rest of this drawn out. I think seeing the whole thing all together will help me. Okay, so this kind of comes down here and it meets about that same area. Okay, and then it's kind of dark, so I can't really see a whole lot here. Okay, so I'm going to draw out part of this shadow since I can see that. And the shadow looks like it goes pretty straight up here. Just like so. Okay, this is a good point that you might go back and look at your color picture just to kind of see what happens here. Okay, so I might do that as well. But for now, I'm going to just kind of move on and I'll come back and address that whenever I get closer. Okay, I will say I do have this darker shadow here and I'm going to draw in. And it hits right about here and kind of angles back this way, almost to this line. Kind of like that. Okay, so I'm going to keep that in there. until I go back and reference my color picture. Again, if this isn't saved on your computer still, you can find it whenever you submitted your assignment. You can go back and open that back up. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going square by square until I have this whole thing done. Okay, every detail. So I will meet you back here in just a minute. Okay, something else to keep in mind too while you're drawing this. So I'm drawing these marshmallows right here. I know what marshmallows look like, right? If I were going to just draw, my own marshmallow, I would essentially draw like a little cylinder, right? In order to make my marshmallow. Okay, which is helpful, but I still want to draw the marshmallows that I see here, not the ones that I know to be in my brain. Okay, so for example, I'm drawing this top shape here first, and it's kind of a weird potato shape. Okay, but I'm just looking at what I see here. I'm not giving it much more thought. I'm just drawing what I see in my picture as closely as possible. Okay, so this looks pretty similar. I do think that I need to thicken this part up a little bit and then thin this part up a little bit based on the picture. Okay, but you want to draw as close to the picture as you possibly can with the shapes that you see. Okay, and then also, again, in my head, when I draw my marshmallow, it's very perfectly cylindrically shaped. Okay, but this marshmallow is not. So the side kind of kicks out here a little bit, just like this, at an angle. Okay, this one kind of comes pretty straight down, right? And then I can start drawing the other marshmallow here that is also kind of happening. Okay, but I just want to draw what I see, not what I imagine marshmallows to look like, okay, or anything else for that matter. Okay, just want to draw what's going on in the picture. Just like so. Okay, so I can continue on that based on the space that I see around this marshmallow. Okay, let's see, this one hits probably right about here. Okay, and I'm just looking at what I see in my picture, not drawing my perfect marshmallow in my head. Okay, so I almost have everything sketched out on here. I have the bottom shadow here. I haven't looked back at my color picture just to see where these lines go yet, but I'm adding in some of the shadows that I see. So for example, this little marshmallow kind of casts a little shadow here, and it comes up a tiny bit past this. And so I'm just kind of putting this information in because it's going to help me out a lot whenever I start shading. So it's good to have all of this kind of figured out ahead of time. Okay, so I have that placement. I have a little shadow here. Looks like. And then I have, see this little triangle, this little almost like a white diamond shape. I want to make sure that I have that done in here. Okay, and then kind of a shadow here. Okay, so that helps me out a lot. Now, I do have a wood grain on my table, and it's up to you whether or not you want to include that in your initial sketch. For me, I'm going to kind of leave it, and I'm just going to add that in whenever I start with the shading, right? But right now I'm just getting down my basic outlines, which I have most of that. The only thing that I have left to do is this little reflection here on my cup. Okay, so I kind of go through and start sketching that one out. Let's see. So this middle one hits right about here, right? Always want to make sure you have the right square. And let's see. It's kind of weird shape because it's an odd reflection. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just kind of sketching in here what I see, where the shadows are, right? I could even draw, like right here, I can see kind of almost like a line where it gets lighter. And I might just kind of lightly draw myself a line in here to help me out with that. Right, so I know that this side's going to be shaded in lighter, this side's going to be shaded in a little bit darker. Okay, I could also add in the texture of my hot cocoa up here if I wanted to. Okay, so really adding in the shadows is going to help you out. You're doing a favor to yourself, but you definitely want to get the lines of everything drawn out. Right, so I have this. Like I can tell this top part is the marshmallow because it looks like this one, but everything else, it's like the back side and it looks so weird. So I'm just really drawing kind of what I see without any ideas of what it might actually be, right? I don't know, something like that. Okay, and this is another time that looking at my picture might help me out a little bit. Okay, so once you have all of your drawing done, so it looks like this. There we go. Okay, so I have everything drawn out here on my paper. I have all of this drawn out. Okay, actually I might add in this little shadow a little bit more. Okay, so once I have my shadow, or once I have everything drawn out here, okay, you can erase your or your numbers if you need to. Okay, but this is checkpoint number 2. Okay, all that we have left after this basically is shading it all in. Okay, so checkpoint number 2 is done. Done, done, done. We'll take it up to me to get your grade for checkpoint number 2, and then you'll move on to shading. When you're shading, something that's important to keep in mind. At this point, you can erase your grid lines and shade in that way. Personally, I like to kind of erase them as I go because they help me keep things in track or on track. And I will show you guys that in a future video.